Your first figure from that specific action figure line is what started your collection. But your second figure that you bought from that same line is what truly opened the doors. And for me, this Unchained armored Superman figure is what opened the doors to why I started collecting DC Multiverse under Mcfarlane Toys. And I remember it was 5 years ago. I went to Walmart and I walked into the toy aisle out of curiosity. I wanted to see what they had. So I looked at the Transformers in the Transformer section. Then I went to the Marvel section and looked at the Marvel Legends. And when I went into the DC section, that was when I saw these DC Multiverse figures that were being made by Mcfarlane Toys for the first time ever in the store. I didn't know that these existed. And if I didn't say this in the last video when I talked about the Batman White Knight figure, let's continue that story. So I believe it was 2 weeks after I got that figure from Amazon. That's when I discovered there were more. Because, when I got that figure, I didn't do any research. I didn't bother to look into more of is there any more figures that this company's making? I didn't think of that. It didn't cross my mind at all. I was just very happy to have the Sean Gordon Murphy designed Batman in action figure form. And I didn't think too much about it. I didn't even think that I would buy another figure. So that's the mindset I was in at that time. Compared to now, we're 5 years into this hobby. So, a whole different person now. But yeah, that's basically how I discovered that there were more figures being made by this company. And to continue what happened at the store. So, as I was looking at the figures that they had, I remember seeing the animated Harley Quinn, the animated Batman, and the animated Green Lantern. And there are probably a few other ones I don't remember. I saw this Unchained armored Superman figure on the bottom row. And I had no clue what this was from in terms of the comics. The only thing that I had in my mind, the thought that came to my mind was, why is Superman wearing armor? I don't know, but it doesn't matter because this figure looks really freaking cool. And I kind of want this. No, I want this thing. I need it. That was what was going on in my mind. Because I saw the design of this thing. And I was just that's a really cool looking action figure. I never actually paid attention to some of the other action figures from other lines. Because for a while, I just only paid attention to Transformers and Bionicles and mostly Legos. And then I had my, Beyblade phase and I had my Bakugan phase, all that other stuff. But this was different. This was impressive. For a $20 figure too, by the way. And it was the only one there. This was the only one that they had in stock. And I knew that I wanted this. And you know what else happened after? That I didn't expect to, by the way. Because, I didn't think that this would ever happen. This Superman figure became the main Superman figure for my shelf. For years. And it still is the main one on my shelf right now. So, it is kind of weird because why would this one be the main one? Because, usually you would use the more classic look for Superman to be your main Superman, right? If you're trying to build a Justice League shelf. But I can't give you that reason. I don't even know why. it just is the main one that I always go to. Every time I look at it, I'm yeah, that's the Superman figure that I need on my shelf. I don't know why it's this one. It's so strange. But yeah, if I had to say what my favorite Superman action figure is from Mcfarlane Toys, well, the answer is quite obvious what that is. It's right here. So it's this one. And look, we all have our favorite Superman figures from every company that's made, and You know, if I had to like put all the McFarlane Superman figures in like some sort of tier list, yeah, this one would be my favorite one. And that's coming from me, you know. Whatever your favorite version is, that's cool. All right? But this is my favorite version for some freaking odd reason. And, you know, it kind of makes sense because when they started doing more of the oddball designs, as I like to call them, where they started taking like designs of characters from comics that I didn't even know existed and started making figures for them. Oh yeah, those were the ones that appealed to me the most. Like, I wasn't even thinking about classic designs in my head. I was like, I don't know what that is. I just want it. So, yeah, clearly that niche really did appeal to me, you know? So, and here we are, 5 years later. All right. Well, that's a little backstory there. Oh, and I guess, you know, here are some other examples. I might as well just talk because, you know, these reviews are throwback reviews and I want to talk about some little story stuff before I get into the review. Because this figure was always front and center on my shelf, this was a Superman figure that I always looked at every single day. When I was doing homework, because at the time I was going to college, just any time I was feeling stressed from anything, I would just look up at the shelf and I would just see this figure. So I think the reason why this is my favorite Superman figure is because it always gotten me through like some hard times that I was just facing when I was going to school and stuff. Like I was just staring at this one the most. So it could be, you know, all those other reasons too. That's probably why this figure is my favorite one and I cherish this one the most. So, all right. Just wanted to share all that, you know, little story thing about the past before we get into this review. Now we can get into the review. I don't want to make this video too long, but I have a feeling it will be. But that's okay because I did say that these reviews will be kind of similar to how I did the reviews back then when I started all this. So, all right, as usual, let's take a look at that data profile card. And as you can see, this is, of course, the older style of those data profile cards. And it's quite thick. And yeah, pretty cool. Holding this thing in hand is really, you know, nostalgic. It feels like a card, like, you know, what a card feels like. All right. Here is the design of what the figure looks like in the comic book source material. And let's talk about the things that I don't like that were not included as accessories, which I feel like was a missed opportunity even with the repainted versions that came after. And that is his axe and his shield. For some reason, McFarlane decided, let's not include those as accessories. I don't know why. Oh, and let's give him item holding hands, but let's not give him any fist hands. So, what the heck happened here? That's weird, but yeah, that's something I don't like there. So, there's that. Okay, and on the back, it does say that it's from Superman Unchained #7. It's crazy how they used to actually say the source, like which issue, and then the year that it came out, 2014, a long time ago. He's 6'3", he weighs 235 pounds, and it reads, when the weaponized alien called Reef goes on a destructive rampage in the Batcave, and both Batman and Wonder Woman are unable to stop him, Superman dons an armor that features a shield and battle axe to confront the electromagnetic adversary. Their battle continues to the center of the Earth, where Superman is finally able to defeat him, leaving him floating in the lava at the Earth's core. Well, that's a really good read up there, so that's why he is wearing the armor. He's fighting an alien that's stronger than him. Oh, that just shows you how long I haven't read this card, so I forgot the reason why he's wearing this armor. Okay, there's that. There you go. But, you know what's interesting, though? Just the fact that he doesn't have those two accessories. You know what's ironic, though? So, I do collect the Spin Master 12-inch DC figures. because I really like those for some reason. And the one they made for Superman, they did make the Unchained armored Superman in that scale. And the armor for that one is very simplistic. Like, it's just like an overlay on him. But that one included the axe and the shield. Interesting, huh? And another thing that I find interesting is that there hasn't been any other company that I think has ever made like this armor into a figure. And I'm talking about like the high-end companies too, like Mayfex or whatever other companies are out there that makes action figures. So this is like the only version of the Unchained armor Superman that I think exists in like the, you know, this the figure style that appeals to us adult collectors. So that's an interesting thing. Okay, let's talk about the accessories that he does come with, which unfortunately, I don't really like these accessories. I mean, they're cool and all, but you know, he can't hold them. And these are his wings. So he comes with 2 wings that are connected to ball pegs that go on the back of the figure. So you can have them being his wings. You can have them kind of like a cape if you want to do it that way. I have made him hold these in his hands. But, you know, he doesn't really hold them. Like, he can't hold these as weapons. They look like they could be held like swords, but, you know, it doesn't really work for that. It's not meant for that. So that's how badly I want him to hold like some sort of weapon, because he does use weapons in this armor. So I will show how these go on the figure later in the video. So there's those 2 things. He did not include a flight stand. He came with the basic DC stand, and that is pretty much it in this box. And now let's take a look at the figure and the aesthetics. Now, let's start with the paint. I think they did a really good job with the paint on this figure. Especially for a $20 figure too. So they were trying to do some sort of metallic coating on this. Clearly, that's what they were trying to do. Of course, you know, it's not like the best, of course, because it looks very glossy. But where that area shines the most for me is the paint they use for the S emblem. This is probably the best painted S emblem I've ever seen using this sort of paint. It's so shiny, but it also kind of looks metallic. Like, it does look pretty good. So I do like the way that this came out. And for the blues, I like the fact that all the blues on this figure is very consistent throughout the whole body. Except for just this little top part right here where his ears are for the top of his helmet that he's wearing. Because this is using a different plastic material. But outside of that, this sort of metallic blue that they were trying to mimic is pretty good from, you know, front and back. And even the back of the head is painted the same way. So I like that. Really neat. The only part that's painted differently when it comes to the reds is really just the belt here. This red is not the same as the rest of the reds for the rest of the figure. And also, the red paint that they use for this is not the same as the ones they use for these side armor pieces that go from, you know, his gauntlets right here, the little shoulder thing right here, or not shoulder, the bicep thing right here, and then the shoulder thing up here is also, you know, matching these, right? But this area is painted a little bit different. But, you know, nevertheless, I do like the way that the reds came out. It does kind of give it that more plasticky, glossy look, of course, which maybe they could have painted differently. But if you're a customizer and you had this figure for as long as I have, you probably went and, you know, done some changes to it before. So this is a figure that's good for customizing too, actually, to make it look even better. And let's talk about the reds up here. So the reds up here by his face are also a little bit different from, you know, the reds on the side. It is like a darker red. I think it kind of matches this one. That's what it looks like to me. So I know on the camera, kind of all looks the same except for this area, but in hand, there is a slight difference. And speaking of the head sculpt, a very interesting head sculpt for, like, you know, a helmet that he's wearing that covers his full face. It does kind of give me like little vibes to like Gundam, because the yellow eyes here, so, and the horns and everything. So I really do like the way that the helmet came out in the design though. So it looks pretty freaking cool. I like these shoulder parts right here, because these kind of look like they're supposed to match with the cape, but there is no cape for this figure. So there's that. And of course on the back here you do have these portholes where the wings go in, and you do have more details. And again, there are some nice details on this armor. I like the sculpting, and let's talk about the sculpting actually, because I haven't even brought that up yet. Why did I say again? You know, there's all these like sculpt lines in some of these areas that really are blended in with the paint. And this is like honestly one of those figures where you could probably make some of these areas stand out so much better than they did in this base painted style, right? Like some of these blues really do hide some of the details that are quite visible that you can see, like even the back part right here with this piece. And even down here with the black, you can change some of these to make them stand out as well. So, you know, I do like that. There's so much details, but sadly, some of it is really buried in some of these blue painted areas and even some of the black painted areas. And if you just add like a little bit of other colors into it to give it like some sort of touch up, you're going to see more of these details be present. So, and yeah, that's basically the aesthetics of this figure. It's very nicely sculpted. I like all these sculpt lines on a lot of these areas. And also the plastic here on these like armor ridges where his abdomen, is that, no, not abdomen, man, I'm getting in his stomach area. This is like pokey plastic. Like this is actually like hard, stiff plastic. It's not like the, you know, usual soft PVC plastic. Now the ears are kind of like soft plastic, not exactly. They are kind of pokey though, not sharp, but you know. So there's that. And as you can see, one side of the ears are warped. I can fix that with hot water, so I will. But that is the aesthetics of this Superman armored figure. And I love the details on it. It definitely could pop more if I do custom paint it, of course. But since I don't know how to do that yet at the moment, I'm going to leave it the way it is. But, you know, I've seen some people do customs with this, and they do a really good job with those. All right. Let's talk about the articulation. And this is where this figure is both good and bad in terms of articulation. So let's start with the arms. So, of course, because this shoulder piece here exists, he's not going to lift his arms out too much, right? It's not going to go out too much. He can go back, so that's it. He can lift his arms up, but of course, because this piece right here does kind of hinder with that butterfly joint in there and all that, that's as far as his arms are going to go out. He does have single jointed arms. They are ratcheted, so it's just the same way that they made the arms for the White Knight Batman. He does have a ball peg for his hand. It does rotate. There is articulation there. Pretty simple. He does have bicep swivel up here, so these do rotate. He does have a butterfly joint. However, the butterfly joint on this figure is pretty much useless. I think it was just filled in to cover those gaps, because if they were functional, there should be more room carved in the front here to allow for more range of movement, but there is none. So the arms can't like touch together. And for his head sculpt, he can look up. Not completely the best when he looks up, right? He can't look up all the way because the back part of his neck, this piece right here, hinders it. He can look down, which he can do surprisingly pretty freaking good. So there's that. He can turn his head side to side, but of course, the joint in here is really weird for me. I don't know why my copy, his head doesn't want to turn all the way to the side, but there's that. And he can also tilt his head side to side, as you can see. So not bad in terms of that head articulation. But, of course, looking up is not the best. However, if you want him to look up better, you can utilize the torso. But, you know, torso is also the other problem. So for the torso here, on my copy, I don't like the fact that this is very loose. I don't know if that's intentional, but, you know, it just does that. Luckily, it doesn't actually, like, flop around, though, because there are some figures that I've seen QC problems for where the torso is, like, loose to the point where, you know, it just rocks around and it's, like, really bad. Like, luckily, this is not the bad kind. You can't really ab crunch forward without utilizing the bottom ball peg from the waist area, unfortunately, because, again, these ridge lines up here are connected to these down here, like they stick out, so of course it's going to limit the ab crunch movement. Now there is rotation, and the rotation up here pretty freaking solid. I do like the fact that that is working, right? But down here where his waist is, it's not the best on my copy. I've heated it up a few times, still doesn't fix the problem. It's just very stiff down there. I don't want to force anything, I don't want to break anything, so I'm just going to leave it that way. His legs, surprisingly, what's really interesting about these legs on my copy is that they are loose like crazy. Like, look at this, right? However, when you utilize the joints, they are tight. Again, I don't know if this is a quality control issue or this is how this figure is, but the looseness here is both beneficial and bad at the same time. Now, the good thing is the thigh swivels up here, the upper thigh swivel, they kind of work, as you can see right on that leg. Kind of works here. But if you spread them out, they work even... No, actually, do they work? No, they don't work. They kind of move, but it's not the best. And I don't like the fact that it's loose, but at the same time, it's not the bad kind of looseness. Like, if I lift this up, you know, this leg's not going to fall. Let's see what happens if I do it with this one. No. Yeah, strangely, the looseness on this figure is not the bad kind of looseness. It feels like it, but it's not. So, interesting. He does have double jointed. Let's do that. So that's pretty good. And he also has, you know, articulation in the toes. I mean, the feet. And he does have toe articulation, of course, because there's a, you know, articulation down there. And yeah, it's pretty much simple articulation that you would expect from a Mcfarlane figure. But again, I think the looseness is the one thing that I don't like about this figure, because it does feel like that bad kind of looseness to me. But surprisingly, it's not. So I would prefer if certain areas were a little bit more tighter, so, you know, it feels better, but it is what it is. At least I have the figure. That is what I'm happy about. So, and it doesn't really, like, fall over or do any of that stuff, you know, if it was super loose, right? Okay, let me show how to put the wings on the back, and also point out another problem that I don't like about the torso on my copy, mainly because, you know, so if you want him to have his wings displayed, excuse me, you can put the wings like this. You can have them down. You don't have to have him, like, you know, always looking like he's about to fly. Like, the fun thing about having the articulation on those wings is the fact that you can have him display the wings like this, or rotate them like this to kind of make it look like a cape, which this is the kind of look that I always like for him when I keep the wings on him. I like the fact that he has it on the back like that. So it kind of looks like he has a cape, even though it's not. Now, if you want him to have the wings, you know, opened, just rotate them around like this, and then just do the same thing on this side, right? Kind of get the wings to, like, stay. And, you know, right now, the figure is actually surprisingly wanting to work with me because he's standing. Because, you know why he's standing? Because I moved the torso forward a bit. And I even used the waist down here to lock in place. That's how you get him to stand with the wings. If you don't want his waist to be leaning forward, and you want him to stand back this way, he's going to fall over. So, not the best. Like, trying to get him to stand in a neutral position like this, he will fall over. Oh, actually, hey, the one time where he doesn't fall over. But yeah, most of the time he tends to fall over when he stands like this. This is kind of surprising. Wow, because the camera's on. That's why he doesn't want to fall. Okay. And that's what he looks like with those wings on. And yeah, you can get him into like, action poses where he's flying or something like this. So, get creative, right? Pretty cool to have the wings. Alrighty. Let's take those wings off. And let's do comparisons, of course, with the other figure that we looked at. Let's have them next to, the first DC Multiverse figure I had that started my collection, not had. There you go. And yeah, you can see the size difference, right? One is bigger and one is shorter. Of course, anytime a character's wearing armor, they're going to be tall as hell. But yeah, there you go. And that's a better look at that White Knight Batman for those of you that don't know what that looks like. And that is basically it for today's review. That is everything I gotta say about this Unchained armored Superman figure. I like the way that this figure came out. It's not perfect. It got its flaws. But I can live with those flaws. And it is still always going to be my favorite Superman figure, okay? That's my opinion. That's how I feel about this figure. And with that said, if you found today's review informative, do give it a like. If you want to subscribe, trying to speak. If you want to subscribe to the channel for more action figure content and whatever else I do on here, you can. You don't have to. In the end of the day, I make these videos for fun. And with that said, take care, and I will see you in the next video.